that's where I think a lot of agents don't go back to that big question. Why did we do that? Well, it's to decouple. It's so we don't have broker to broker compensation. And so when you start to see agents get really creative to go back to their old ways, it just makes no sense. And so that's what we're seeing in our MLS right now. Oh, there's 52 new ways to advertise commission. And the question always goes back to, well, why did we remove the commission field? So we don't advertise commission. And so I think that's what we're trying to navigate right now is how do we keep it flowing the old way, but try not to get sued, moving forward. So our agents are just, we're of the mindset that we want to negotiate every deal. We want the buyer agents to bring in the offer, and we're going to look at every offer individually and decide what, our seller should and shouldn't take. But, I'm also of the mindset that I think, it is wise to employ thousands of real estate agents because, as you all know, the average agent sells 2 to 4 homes a year. If I'm selling 4 homes and I have a quarter of my income in the car and I see that 5 listings I'm going to show, 3 are offering compensation and 2 are like, hey, bring me an offer. As an agent, if I'm not that strong, I'm going to go, oh, well, I couldn't get into these 2, but I got into these 3. So I have a fiduciary duty to show all the properties, but deep down, I don't have a fiduciary duty to sell all the properties because I might look at a crack and, look at the foundation and sway people. And I think that's what, unfortunately, agents that don't make a lot of money that are desperate are going to do because they're not good enough to have a UVP and to get their real value. So they're going to count on listing agents to do what they've always done and offer compensation, which I think, is going to happen more in the beginning. And then eventually we're going to start to move away from even being able to offer it.
So Tina, go ahead, Jay. Sorry.
Yeah. In that scenario, this is the thing that certainly that's the way it's likely to go down. Mm. The buyer's agent at that point should have already negotiated their compensation with that buyer prior to that part of the process.
Right.
So to me, I think there's going to be a ton of agents out there willy-nilly winging it, not following the rules. And that's going to be a whole nother can of worms in and of itself.
Well, that's what we talked about today. We're like, let's say I'm, average agent Joe, and I offer 1.5% to open doors to Betty the buyer. But I go to a listing and I see that they're offering 3%. I'm going to go back to Betty buyer and say, hey, I need to change this compensation agreement. They're offering 3. If Betty buyer allows me to do that, and I'm okay to do that, every showing that I have, I get to go back to Betty buyer and say, hey, I'm making more if Betty buyer allows it. Now, is Betty buyer smart enough? Sometimes she's not going to be. And she's like, whatever, John. Yeah, if they're giving you 3, I want to give you 3. So the other thing is, to me, what we talked about this morning in our meeting was, if I'm negotiating for a seller and I say, hey, my commission, traditionally was X, this is what I'm going to charge you for my professional fee, but I think you should offer 3% or 2% or 2.5%. And then all of a sudden Betty buyer's deals come in at 1.5. My seller can basically say, well, wait, you cost me another 1%, 2%, so I think we're going to start seeing sellers sue their listing agents for potentially negotiating their dollars away before offers even come in. So again, I go both ways. I think marketing, you should offer compensation to the sales force out there that has the buyers to incentivize them to bring their buyers and not only show the property, but sell it. Because I remember when, because I've been doing this 24 years, when foreclosures were rampant and everything was like, nothing was moving, I was telling my sellers to offer 4 and 5% to incentivize the buyer broker. So I was known as 4% Tina, because every time you showed my property, you were making 4%. And that incentivized the brokers to work harder for my sellers. So sellers understood that and they did it. Today, you're just afraid of getting sued to tell us that same thing. So it's ridiculous, kind of.
They really look. I want to open up with this. Our feelings don't matter. Everyone's feelings is getting in the way from them moving forward and doing the right thing. Everyone's got feelings. I mean, I got feelings. Jay, Tina, John, Leo's got feelings. We all have feelings. So we can agree on that. But the difference is, are you going to let your feelings get in the way of you moving forward or leading your organization or your team or your brokerage in the way And we are seeing it everywhere. We're seeing brokers that have been licensed 35 years who are coming to our meetings. I'm at a meeting right now at Infinity Title. Little plug for one of our sponsors for Rock and Rescue and Agent to CEO, by the way. And we just, over the last 2 days, we've had almost 300 of our agents in 3 separate meetings answering questions, going through all this. And we're hearing already the stories because as of yesterday, our MLS deleted, omitted, it's done. There's no more buyer broker compensations in our MLS. It's happened.
Right.
Has it happened in your market?
Yeah, it happened last week. Yep. Yep.
So now there's brokers, and I'm not sure if this is when yours either, but like, so the IDX feed, some of these brokers are saying, okay, let's say that your IDX feed, I'm just using this as an example. Let's say there's 20,000 listings in your MLS that are feeding into your IDX, and everyone has their own IDX portal. If your brokerage, let's just say out of those 20,000, your brokerage has 2,000 of those listings. Mm-hmm. They can go into those 2,000 listings with their own money and put buyer brokerage or broker to broker compensation in their IDX listing.
Right.
And I'm having a hard time getting my arms around why they would do that. I know we can make lots of reasons for it because our feelings tell us, oh, well, this is the way we've been doing it for the last 40 years. So here, let's find a way to keep doing it that way.
Right.
Versus let's evolve as an industry, as professionals. And because you had said it, Jay, from the beginning, you can't work with the buyer and expect to get paid without a buyer broker agreement with a compensation pre-negotiated in it. I've never seen a listing agent take a listing at X%, whatever that is. And then look, 20 offers comes in and they say to their seller, have we ever gone back and said, Mr. Seller, I'm getting you, 50,000, 100,000 over asking price. Let's renegotiate our fee because look how much more money I'm getting you. That
right.
never happens. So
right.
Why would you renegotiate your buyer fee just because X broker is deciding to offer this and you shortchanged yourself up front?
Right.
Learn how to articulate your value. Learn how to articulate your unique value proposition and set your fee and work with that and then negotiate it like we we negotiate the hot tub, like we negotiate this, that. We've been negotiating our entire careers. So what makes it any different right now? There's going to be a lot of the attorneys are the only ones that's going to win through all this. For the next 12 months, we're going to start seeing litigation come up like crazy. I agree with you, Tina. That's the attorneys are salivating right now.
Yeah, they're sitting there, they're just watching.
Yeah. And I mean, we've our agents, for the last couple of years, our market has seen commission compression on the buyer agent side, especially, we're a growth market. We've got a lot of builders not offering compensation. Our agents have been negotiating their commission on the buy side for a very long time and getting above market, rates. And so they were like, oh, this is cool. Like it's the same thing. So they know how to get the gap. If somebody's offering 2 and they're charging 3 or 4, they know how to get the gap. There are agents in our market, actually, an hour from here that are getting 2 times the amount of what is normal, let's just say, in MLS. So it just depends on, again, your value, the buyer. There's always going to be discount buyers. There's always going to be FSBO buyers, FSBO sellers, people that want to save a buck. If I'm going to go into a multi-million-dollar deal or $1 million deal or a $500,000 deal or $250,000 deal, I'm not a do-it-yourselfer. I'm just not. And I've always paid for value. And so when you think about, even with women, there's a difference between Coach and Louis Vuitton and Chanel. Why? They're all the same leather, but the perceived value of the Chanel bag is different than the Coach bag because of the, of the advertising and the marketing that Chanel did. And so that's what we said to our team. We are the professionals. We train every day. We come in every day. We prospect every day. We're having conversations. We're leading. We're professional decision maker uppers. We guide our clients to make decisions. Therefore, they're going to pay us for our knowledge and our expertise. That's it. And if they don't want to pay us for our knowledge and expertise, then they can go get the door opener down the street. In fact, we'll have a list ready for them hey, these are the agents that are opening doors for $50. If you want to spend $500,000 and have a door opener, here's the list. But that's not us. So as long as we know who we are, I think we're just going to be fine, and we're going to find our buyer pool.
Tina,
real quick disclaimer before we move forward. We're not suggesting that anybody charges a certain particular commission, by the way. We want to stay out of antitrust
That's right.
lawsuits. So any of you blood-sucking attorneys who are watching this and thinking of like, that's what we're suggesting. We're not suggesting that you charge any of those percentages. It's a free market. Everything's negotiable. Anybody can charge whatever their worth is. And that's kind of our point.
Yeah.
But, just want to make sure that that's clear.
Yeah, we charge different fees to different sellers, different, depending on what they need. I mean, our fees are all over the board.
So Tina, the biggest thing, right? So I'm hearing from you. Obviously, it's like I said, you're a massive training organization. You believe in skills that travel. I mean, look at your career, look at your foundation, just your ability to articulate your value over the phone. And I think we can step back and realize, we are the minority. Mm-hmm. And you look at the majority of these agents out there that don't understand value, don't know how to articulate their value. So then that puts a compression in a race to the bottom. So how are you kind of seeing and really, trying to amplify the message from a marketing perspective out there? Because it's going to be a wait, right? We've always talked about, a defining gap between, the true experts and then the rest of everybody else, right? There used to be 3. I think it's just going to be 2, right? It's going to be a massive, bottom feeders, and then just the very, very few elite. So how are you, one, keeping their mindset, their value articulation, being able to do that, but also kind of changing the way they think from a marketing perspective, because buyers don't know any different. Sellers don't know any different. Like, how are you being able to convey that message, the message to the market, to articulate your value proposition consistently to where, we don't fall into the masses with a race to the bottom?
Well, I think that, when you look at the thousands of sales that are being done, listings, let's take listings, for instance, there are strong listing agents, and then there are weak listing agents. There are flat fee listing agents, and then there are full fee agents. I'm a full fee agent. I'm very clear in fact, I might talk to you, John, and go, hey, John, I'm a full fee, full service broker. That may not fit for you. Are you looking for a professional? You see it right now in listings. So it's going to be the same thing with buyers. There's going to be a buyer pool that wants a discounted service. That's okay. They've been around for years. And you're going to see the full fee brokers, full service brokers step up and offer that extra level of service and knowledge. And I think knowledge, to me, is finally going to have a bigger price tag, because I believe that, new Betty broker that just got her license, if she's going to service you, John, and go out and find a $500,000 home, new Betty broker might only be worth 1%. She's new, she's practicing on you. I'm worth more than that. I know my value. So if the seller or the buyer wants to hire and have independent brokers practice on their biggest asset, by all means, you could have always done it. For 24 years, I've gone up against sellers that said, oh, I went with another broker because they offered me X%. Good for you. I'm glad we're not in communication anymore, because that's not my demographic. I don't want your friends. I don't want your future business, because you don't see value in what I do. So I'm looking for people that value what I do and want that level of service. And I think you can feel it when you talk to somebody who's good and who's going to lead you. And you can feel it when you're being led and you have a seller or a buyer that wants to lead. Those are not my people. I provide a service. I provide advice. You don't have to take it. But I always start with, this is my process. It's my process. When you go to an attorney's office or a doctor's office, you don't say, hey, by the way, I've got a process I'd like you to follow, Mr. Attorney. No, this is my process at our brokerage, at our firm, at the doctor's office. So I think when you lead with that strong ability and confidence, people are like, I'll pay, fine, this is what I need. And so, with me, you survive. Without me, you die. That's kind of what we say around our team.
What is the skills required to be able to be up here and not down here? Like agents of the future, like these are the skills you have, because, right. So think about this, right? So we talked about this. I even shared this in Detroit with you guys. And I've shared it with Jay and Al a couple of times. when we fall out of flow and we get into a state of anxiety is when the challenge is greater than the skill sets we have. And then vice versa, when we get bored, we don't have a big enough challenge. What I believe has happened is that the challenge raised even without us wanting to raise the challenge. Right. And so therefore, when you were in a state of flow, the skill sets you had no longer serve you because now the game has changed. The challenge has gotten greater. So what are the skill sets required for, the elite or anybody that aspires to be the elite moving forward? Like, what are the skill sets that they need to invest in and focus on to be able to meet the challenge of the current market?
Well, I think when you think about it as a whole, because I always go way up high and I go, okay, 20% of the homes sold in the next 2 years are going to be unlicensed agents today. So they're going to be new agents coming into the market that don't even know what they don't know. And they're actually going to be better for it because they're going to know this is the way we do it. There are buyers that have never bought before. This is the way that this will be new to them. So we'll have 20% of the agents and buyer pool that just will go with this new flow without understanding what's going on. I think from a perspective of like leveling up, there are agents that don't practice their skills. They don't practice their scripting. And when I say scripting, it's not to, coerce anybody into doing something they don't want to, but it's being able to listen, so anytime I'm in a meeting, I usually put an L on my paper because I like to talk like all realtors. And I try to remind myself to listen. So I think agents, instead of, really trying to talk their way through it, they're going to listen more. They're going to ask more questions. They're going to become professional decision maker uppers. John, what is important to you? What do you know about NAR? Do you know how commissions are paid to a buyer agent? Do you know how commissions are paid to a seller agent? When you start asking the public those questions and the public doesn't understand how to respond, their level of comfort starts going up, and they have my job is to create doubt. Not to rape you of a commission, but to show you that I have value. You don't know everything you don't know. I would never go to a doctor and say, hey, let me try to do surgery today because I saw a YouTube video. That's crazy. So I think that again, it's going to take time and patience. And yes, I'm sorry, but I've been doing this 24 years. You guys have been doing this 20 plus years like me. We will get paid more just because of the time involved. And a new agent is going to get paid less in the beginning. They're going to have to take their lumps. They're going to have to sometimes discount if they are not confident. I have brand new agents charging really great commissions right now because they have confidence. So I just think it's a level up from a confidence building, scripting and dialogue, learning how to ask great questions, learning how to listen. And really at the end of the day, it's being a great communicator and making it easy and digestible for people to understand what you do, how you're going to guide them, how you're going to solve their problems, and not make it easier for them, but just protect them from what they don't know.
Hey, Tina, I've heard varying different opinions of the approach in terms of what that initial agreement is. What is your policy? What are you training to? Are you getting a 1-day agreement to start, a one property showing agreement? Are you getting a full-blown representation agreement? What are you teaching your agents as far as that process on the phone? When does that happen? And how does that flow look for your team?
So I think for us, whenever you go out to a listing appointment, you usually don't get a 1-day agreement. You go out and you present and you try to get the signature, right? And you say, hey, at the end of my presentation, one of 3 things is going to happen. I'm going to take the listing. I'm not whatever, I'm a more Mike Ferry agent, Jay, and I love listening to old Mike Ferry, ways. So when I go out, I don't always get the listing, right? But I'm not going to work for that seller for a duration of time for free. I'm not giving that seller my pricing strategy. That's when you believe that I can guide you through the transaction, then we'll talk about pricing. So I don't give the seller anything once I'm out there other than this is what I do. Do you believe in hiring me? Same thing for a buyer. I'm not going to go open 3 doors. Why do we have to date? This is not we don't need to date. This is what I do. This is what I'll do for you. This is what you need, and I can solve that problem. Do you want to hire me? You're not paying me until the transaction is done, just like a seller. So we try to reframe the mentality now to the buyer and say, look, when we go out on listings, the seller interviews 1, 2, or 3 agents usually. So what I think you should do, Mr. Buyer, before you start opening doors, putting the cart before the horse, because you're going to have to pay, you should pay attention, because when people pay, they pay attention. So we should probably meet at the office. And I would encourage you to go out there and meet with one or two more really good seasoned agents. And then you get to decide who's going to take you through the process, just like a seller does, because the sellers know that they pay, therefore they're paying attention. So I think it's just reframing that. No, we're not going to go out and get freebies. We're going to go out and get contracts signed, but I'm going to push for a presentation first. Hey, yep. Jay, yeah, it's great. I can show you 123 Apple Lane. May I share with you the process that I use to sell homes? Well, the first step is we can meet. Now, I don't mind meeting you at the house, but at the house, we're going to have a 15 to 20 minute conversation where I'm going to walk you through the process, because things have changed. Do you know how things have changed? Explain to them that, whatever. So you're sort of just sharing the process and hoping that they get on board. And if they're a buyer that says, no, I've done this before, I've sold 12 homes. Awesome. Well, we sell 80 a month. So there's probably something here that we can bring you of knowledge, but I'm glad that you've sold 12 homes. It's so much easier to work with a seller or a buyer that has done this before,
I'm laughing because it's the principle. And I articulated this to a newer agent the other day, and we talked through the listing side, right? Let's go through the whole process, right? You set the appointment, qualify the appointment, pre-sell, build rapport, articulate your value, articulate the process, get them into a that's right moment that Chris Voss talks about. That's right. They believe that's right moment. And then, we agree, and we, agree, and then we determine price and we move forward. I said, it's the same thing on the buy side. And then it just clicked for them. And so I think that's where the advantage, newer agents just don't know any better, but even seasoned agents, I think, that understand the listing, that are meeting resistance with just a mental block on the buy side. That was just one way to articulate it. Like you said, reframe it for them and say, let's just go and walk through the buy side as if it was a seller. And then goes, light bulbs went on. And it was like, okay, well, what is my value now? Like, how do I stack? What's my value stack on the buy side? I don't know. Love it, leave it program. Home warranty will take care of it. Make sure you get just right and start value stacking all the value. And I think that's the big thing with real estate agents is that, and this is what world-class marketers, Michael Reese is the best in the world at this, right? He will say, like, this shoelace doesn't mean anything, but this shoelace is the most valuable shoelace that you'll ever see, right? So, making the smallest things that we think don't mean anything are of massive value. And I think we keep coming full circle, right? It's articulating your value. And we say it over and over and over. In the absence of value, people question price. If you can just value stack the heck out of them, and then you come in and you charge 10 times greater than the market average, they're not going to question it. They're going to be like, damn, I thought it was going to cost me more.
Right.
And that's always been our take on the whole process is just stack so much value that when you do hit them with your fee, they're like, damn, I thought it was going to be more.
Right. So, and I agree. I just think I think we're overcomplicating it. We're just going through a little transition of it's going to change. We're resisting it right now as a whole. We're resisting it. Nobody likes change. So it'll take 6 months to get some lawsuits, some, fines, some oopsie, we shouldn't have sent that form first. I mean, I think we're going to go through that hell. Nobody really knows. But I think if we can just stay the course, stay protective a little bit of ourselves, give value, but yet not try to, reinvent the wheel. So, I think that it will all settle out at the end of the day, because it's been proven multiple times that this is an industry that needs representation on both sides. We've had Purple Bricks, we've had Open Door, we've had a lot of different disruptors come in and try to take the seat of the buyer agent away, and it hasn't happened yet. So that it shows you that buyers need guidance and sellers need guidance, and we're not going to be replaced by AI or door openers. And I think even Redfin is going to a now percentage-based model. They're not doing the paid for door opener, model anymore.
Yeah, all their agents were put on notice.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as of February, they're no longer getting salaried. They're going to be They're going to be, but so the agent I met with that called me basically said they're expecting us to do the same exact thing we had to do as W-2 employee, be at every single meeting, do all this with no salary.
Right.
You know, and just a percentage like your traditional agent would get. But I want to get to a couple things. One, I'm really interested in your opinion, Jay and John as well, on this consumer watchdog that appears that they're trying to basically fix what buyers should pay us, which is the exact reason this entire lawsuit was filed in the first place, was accusing us of price fixing, which didn't happen. Yes, there were traditional amounts that one broker would file what another broker did, but I doubt that there was really a whole lot of colluding. It was more like what we've been talking about. It was along the lines of how much value could you articulate? Commissions have been all over the place since I've had my license.
Yeah.
But I want your opinion on one thing that I feel like there was a few things missed. One, if you're going to exclude the buyer's agent commission from the MLS, why would you allow it on anything else? It just seems like it's counterproductive. It's confusing brokers. You got one broker saying, we're going to start our own website and put them all up there. And you got another broker saying that we're not going to do broker to broker, even though it says you can do broker to broker, but you can't advertise broker to broker. So we're going to hang signs and all this other stuff. I want your opinion on one thing. I'm not sure, I'm not judging, but how do you feel about dual agency? How do you guys all feel about dual agency? And before I give you my opinion, I just want to hear yours.
Go for it.
Who's going? I mean, I'll go. I mean, so I've done dual agency. I mean, before in the past, of course. In North Carolina, we check for dual agency and designated agency. And so I always go to my seller and I say, hey, Jay Kinder brought, he's a buyer. He called. He'd like for me to represent both of you at the same time. Are you comfortable with it? And if that happens, this is the commission on it. Some sellers will say, sure, yeah, be the transaction coordinator. I can't really advise you and I can't really advise him. I don't do it often. But what I think is a huge opportunity right now is going to be buyers that come to a listing agent and they're not exclusively represented by anybody. They're just self-represented. And so that's going to be a big opportunity because the agent on the list side is still going to charge a commission. They still have to go to inspections. They still have to do paperwork. They still have to do a lot of the broker activity that the agent would have done for that buyer. That buyer's not saving money. That's what the buyer thinks, but they're not. So if there's another 1.5%, 2%, 3% packed into the deal, and you're going to represent yourself, Mr. Buyer, you're going to pay me just like going to a builder. You're represented by the seller's agent, but you're not protected. There's no agency agreement. So I think there is going to be a huge opportunity. It's going to be bad for the buyer, but a lot of sellers agents are going to say, sure, I'll do that work, but I'm not representing you. So I don't like dual agency.
Jay, what's your take on dual agency?
Yeah. I mean, it shouldn't exist. I mean, it really, you can't facilitate the deal knowing things on both sides and not somehow get, you play to one side or the other. I think it just opens you up to a lot of potential for litigation. Never have been a fan of it.
Yeah. Agreed.
John?
Yeah. I think back, I mean, remember where we came from, right? We were selling $100,000 houses. So like we had to do anything and everything we possibly could. And if that meant we get to double into deal, we would double into deal, even though at our core, it's like what Jay was saying. It's like, you got insider information. You're playing both sides. I'm
thinking, John, double ending a deal doesn't necessarily mean that you're a dual agent. And that's a big distinction we have to remember. Just because you're getting both sides, right, you're charging a higher fee by handling that. So I
do, but to just echo the point, right? Is to what Jay said.
When I was a listing agent, I never acted. I always told one of my value propositions to my seller that differentiated me from my competitors, because I was always going against big competitors here, is that I personally will never act as a dual agent. Now, the brokerage might, because we have lots of agents, and those agents may have a buyer, and as a broker, let's say, for instance, eXp Realty. We have 1,800 agents in Ohio. There's a chance one of them may have an agent, but I will never personally act as a dual agent for a buyer coming directly in here as an agent, but the brokerage may. Now, if they really wanted, when they were filing this lawsuit and they're trying to protect the consumer, they had a really big opportunity to make this real easy. They could have just said, no agent can act as a dual agent.
Right.
Just period. No more dual agents. Now the brokerage can, because they can't handcuff the brokerage themselves because they have potentially tens of thousands of agents. But the agent themselves, that would then make the buyer think twice. I'm going to come in thinking they're going to save money. They're going to come in unrepresented. And if they have any sense whatsoever, they know that there'd be nobody negotiating on their behalf, watching out for their terms, fighting for their terms, not just price, but terms of an agreement. And that was their first opportunity to make this whole thing a lot smoother. And I believe they missed the boat on that. And because we all agree on this podcast right here, dual agency does not serve the consumer as a whole. And if anything, it's been used as a tool to get, like what you said, John, both sides of the deal. You don't have to do that. So I want to move into this consumer watchdog, guys, because this was just incredible. Like, I couldn't even believe that I was reading it in Inman, and it was a lot of other things that, this guy, Stephen Brobeck of this consumer watchdog, it's called the Consumer Federation of America, whatever that is, basically came out and said that they're recommending that buyers not pay, like 2% is basically the most that they should pay an agent. And they're throwing this out there as like the benchmark, basically saying like, oh, okay, well, what about if now they say 2% or less? Okay. But like, when did this consumer watchdog all of a sudden know what the economics were of a real estate agent who's working with a buyer, rating 10, 12 offers, showing them up to 50 houses sometimes? Not saying that anyone wants to do that, but just the immense amount of hours that goes into that. And they're coming out there. Tina, I'm going to go to you. What do you feel about this watchdog that's supposed to be this consumer watchdog coming out and trying to basically price fix and tell buyers and consumers what they should pay us?
Well, I mean, I put it right on my Instagram the minute I saw it. I'm like, this is so crazy, because it's literally price fixing at its finest. It's putting a blanketed statement to have, commissions be a standard, right? Which they're trying to get away from. So no, I was completely against it. It's absolute price fixing. But here's a perfect example. There is a brokerage, I won't name names, in our town. And yesterday we got text messages with, hey, we're buyer broker friendly. Literally on their page, our strategy is to continue earning 6% on all listings, including 2.4% to all buyer agents. I mean, literally, like that right there. I'm like, how dumb are you? Like, that is a brokerage with a lot of agents.
Why not just put a big target right on your forehead?
Right. They're attorneys.
Think of the world.
That's why I'm like, this is the wild, wild west. You're going to see. I could literally make one statement that's like one sentence, and I could show it to 15 people, and I'm going to have 15 iterations of what it means. That's the problem, is my lens, my cognitive, processing is different than yours. So it's like we're trying to get everyone thinking the same way, and it's not going to happen right now. That's the problem. So it's going to continue to be a problem.
I didn't know about that, Tina. Here's what I think. If there's brokers that are dumb enough to do that, not only and put it out there and like literally advertise it, you're going to see them get their asses sued so fast and hard. Totally. They're going to straighten back up just like, what?
But how can they when Consumer Watchdog is putting it out there too? So it's confusing. Again, it's like, it makes no sense. I mean, it really makes no sense. I think in 5 to 10 years, we'll all see exactly why this happened. But I don't know. I think there's a bigger play. You always follow the money. Like I always think of, I could go down rabbit holes, but even in institutions, learning institutions, colleges, when you look at funding that comes into what is being taught, it's an agenda. Everything's an agenda. So I think there's an agenda here, obviously bigger than what we can see right now. So
You know, something you said earlier, just going back to the scripting. I remember I can't remember what House bill it was, but whenever we were dealing with short sales, we would ask a seller, we would say, are you familiar with House Bill 3160 or whatever it was? Mm-hmm. And of course, the answer was always no, but it immediately got their attention. And, you talked about the importance of asking questions. And, this is the case number on this, NAR versus Reed was, 5C5140. If you just ask that one question, the answer to do they know what that means to how they're going to pay commissions, they are not going to know the answer to that.
No.
And then you have the opportunity to explain how you work and how we can make sure that your commissions that aren't coming out of your own pocket, and we can ask the seller to pay for that for you. And so I just think that's such an important distinction is understanding how to navigate the conversation so that you're educating the consumer of what the law is now and how you can best serve them to make sure you negotiate the best deal for them across the entire real estate transaction.
And it's just like, let's just say we're going back to just skills 101. My agents would come back and be like, oh my God, they asked me what my commission was and if I would go down to X%. And I said, well, what did you say? Well, then they go back to defending. Well, I do this and I do this and I have to pay this person. I have to pay this for no. The only question is, hey, will you lower your commission to X%? Possibly, but let me ask you, do you know how commissions are paid in the state of North Carolina? You ask that back to the seller. And this is beyond this whole thing. That's the rebuttal. It's a question. And then when they start to answer it and they don't know the answer, they don't know how commissions are paid, they don't know how the 5, 6, 7% is dispersed, then they start to create doubt in their own mind. They feel a little bit more stupid because at that moment, I'm sorry, but you are. And that's where you can go in and set your value and explain to them and educate. To me, an objection is a question in the mind of the buyer or the seller. That's it. It's a question. They're not attacking you, and you don't need to defend it. You need to go back with a great question. And I think this is the same thing.
Hey, Tina, I got a question that came in. So one of the issues that a larger team is dealing with, their biggest issue is dealing with other brokerages who are still following co-op compensation and difference in terminology and forms. Mm-hmm. How are you guys handling that right now?
Well, we're doing the best we can. I just had one of our paralegals call me, and she works with a lot of different brokerages, and she said, people have this thing right now with EXP because the headlines were no more broker to broker compensation. Well, we all knew what that meant, the decoupling, how things were being paid. But what the average agent took it as is, oh my God, EXP is not going to pay buyer agent commissions. We hate EXP. We're guys, like that's not what we're saying. And then we had to go back to social media and start educating and not defending, but just educating. So I think that's exactly it right now. We've got different agencies hearing different things, doing different things. I mean, you've got Colorado that was like, F you, we're doing it our way. I think that's kind of cool. But, it's like there's so many different ideals out there. And so I think we just have to say, okay, what does our brokerage want? How do we protect our brokerage? Because of course, EXP can be sued. I don't want to do anything that could get some massive lawsuit there. I don't want to be sued. So I'm going to do what's best for the consumer. How I navigate this is going to be, very, I'm not going to try to go the old way. I think that's the key here. Why did this happen in the first place? Why did we remove compensation? It wasn't so we can be creative. We know realtors are creative. We're fixers. We find a problem, we fix it. So we're not trying to figure out who the coolest, fastest way to go do it the old way is. So I think we just have to be patient, understand that EXP is for buyer broker commissions, but we also have to protect our sellers. And this lawsuit is moving us into a direction where it says, hey, we're no longer negotiating a buyer compensation or directing our sellers to even pay it. We're depending on the buyer agents to do their own negotiations. That's truly where we're going. We're not trying to go back to the old way. So I think it's going to take many, many, many months to kind of move into this new season of treating a buyer like a seller.
Yeah,
I would agree. I think too, understanding and I think this is where a higher level of emotional intelligence and empathy comes in and the resistance and change and just be like, hey, I get it. Right. And just, it's tough. You're navigating a lot of things, find that not necessarily not going to look for common ground, but just be like, hey, listen, right? Like, this is the change. This is where we're at on it. Where are you guys at on it? And then what do we need to do to just keep moving forward and get the deal done? Because I think at the end of the day, the whole objective is that they want to get paid. We want to get paid. The deal wants to get done. We just figure out a way to get it done.
And I think it's like being patient too. We're all like, oh, Leo is, he's just trying to do the best he can. Like he said, hey, we might have to change. I mean, I love that he's very humble to say, we're doing it this way because of how we're reading this and to protect, our agents and the public, but we may change. There may be different iterations of this. And so I think it's being calm. I can't believe how much hate I got on, if you guys go read some of the social media, like the posts that come in, people are so hateful. And it's just so interesting to me how aggressive real estate agents are. It's like, okay, everybody calm down. Like, why are we being so aggressive? Just because people don't see it your way. And you look at it in government, it's like the world is divided. No one can, understand everyone else's opinion. So I think patience, understanding, ego, take that ego out of it. And nobody freaking knows the exact answer. So let's all just do the best we can.
Yeah. Remember what Tyson used to say? Everybody's tough until you get punched in the face.
Yeah, exactly.
100%. That's why I love Leo's perspective on, hey, this is what we think right now, and that could change, and it most likely will. So, at least we're doing something. The thing that that's most amazing to me is to see how many people's heads are just in the sand right now, and they're not doing anything to change. And so it's certainly going to be interesting.
I have
one last question for you, Tina.
I was talking about.
I had somebody send me a text yesterday, just trying to get a gauge, gun to head. What do you think? Say a year from now, do you think commissions will be up or down? If down, how much on the buy side? Any impact on the listing side? Any impact on the overall population of agents?
So I think we're going to lose 1 million agents, is my guess, in the next 24 months. That's my guess. Because I think you're going to see the part-timers, they're not going to be good enough to actually go and ask for their value, because they're just going to give it away. They give it away now. So they give half backs and all that. So if they're not getting it from the seller, there's going to be nowhere to give back. So I think we'll lose agents. I actually think for the top 20%, which has always been true, they're probably going to get a raise. I think listing agents are going to get a raise. And I think buyer agents are going to get a raise, because for the longest time, the good buyer agents already make more. They're already out there. It's proven. So I think it's going to be a huge opportunity for good agents. I do also think that, overall, though, you might see a drop a little bit in buyer agent commissions. You might see a little bit of a drop. And you might see a little bit of a drop in seller commissions, but I don't think the seller commissions are going to go down. I think those are actually going to go up.
I think they're going to go up as well. I think the listing side is going to go up, because I think that's your strongest, the strongest skilled agents in the industry. And I think the buy side is likely to go down, just because there's so many people that are not going to be able to negotiate on their, and those are still the ones that are at risk of becoming irrelevant and getting out of the business. Yeah.
But for the good agents, they'll go up. I mean, people are like, oh my God, you guys are going to be like travel agents. I'm like, you know what? Travel agents right now, they're killing it. They are killing it. The best of the best survive. These people are crushing it because they're not obsolete. So the majority went away, but we will still be at play. Like we're not losing the industry.
Tina, I'm going to disagree a little bit with the number of agents who are going to be dropped. I don't think that it's going to be 1 million. Here's why.
I was hoping.
We don't. Yeah, but I don't know, because think about it. Like, what I would rather happen, and what I think is this, I think you're right. There's going to be an exodus, but think about it like this: the turnover between, let's forget about the Burnett case, just the natural turnover and cyclical business, nature of our business of agents that are just exiting anyway. New ones coming in. The newbies aren't going to know the difference. They're not they have nothing to unlearn. They're going to learn this, and this is going to be their normal.
That's true.
This is going to be the normal. We're going to have an influx. And guess what? The next Tina Caul, the next John Kinder, the next Jay Kinder, the next John Kitchens is coming. They're in school right now. And our next group of leaders is coming, and they're going to have to learn this because this is just the new norm.
Yeah.
And so I think that the level of professionalism that is going to go up. I think that it's also, when you talk about, are they going to make more money or less money? I agree with you guys. I interviewed an agent, or didn't interview. I had a conversation with one of our top agents here in Cleveland yesterday. He got a listing, had 5 offers, and he did the math on what the 3 that the seller were considering. The 3 the seller were considering, what they were asking to be paid by the seller toward the buyer's agent commission. It was all a little more than what the average was that he saw in the MLS. So you're all right. The question is, how long is it going to take for people to learn it? What's the learning curve?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe we do lose $1 million at first, but they're going to have to come back, because there's, I mean, if we cut the number of agents in half, we are not the supply and demand. We don't drive how many homes are going to sell. We don't drive how many buyers are going to want homes. That's just economics. And that's going to happen with or without us. The demand's going to, we don't control demand.
Yeah.
Maybe you disagree. Do you think we control demand of housing?
Well, I don't think so. But I also think too, like on that point, we were an industry where people saw shiny cars, like we're all millionaires. And that's not true either. The average agent, when I put posts out there, the average agent sells 2.5 homes a year. That's $14,000 in a market where they're making $7,000. That's why I think $900,000 should go get a job. 900,000 agents should go get a job. They shouldn't have this job. They're just part-time hobbyists. So we have a lot of hobbyists in the business. Those hobbyists should go away, because maybe, that extra 14 to 20 grand for them is a vacation. They do it for fun. But I don't think they're going to see this industry as like, oh my God, it's so easy now. Our paperwork has gone up tenfold. I went from doing not so many things 24 years ago to 152 things just to list a house today. And it's going to also turn into an industry where teamrages are going to rule, brokerages, right? You're not going to see a lot of solo agents. We're the only business where we say, come in to this business, stay solo forever. Good job. You're a solo agent doing the job of 5 people. Like, I would never open a Dairy Queen or a restaurant and say, I'm going to be the bus boy and the bus girl and the hostess and the cook and no, but that's what I'm saying. I think the industry, this paperwork alone is going to put people under. And so I do think that it's going to be a higher level of entrepreneurism that comes in. They have to think scalability and productivity, and not go, oh my God, I'm solo, I could work 8 hours a day doing this. No, it's, if I hire 2 or 3 people and we each work 8 hours a day, now I got 20, 25 hours in one day. I can grow this thing into a business. So I don't know. I think we're going to see changes, but I still would, I hope that we get a mass exodus of the hobbyists, people that really aren't making money.
Yeah.
No, you hit on what Mike had said. Mike Inkervai Jr., who was the one who was talking to me, he had said that it took him longer because of all these changes to do the net sheet for every one of the offers he has coming in. And he's a very highly skilled, highly intelligent, sharp agent, right? Right. Imagine your mediocre agent trying to do the same thing. They take a listing, and now they got to do all these. The net sheets are just take longer. We've always done net sheets, but now it's going to take longer because what's this person asking in a concession, or is this person asking for the seller to pay it directly? And there's a lot more moving parts to try to figure out that. So I agree with you. Are you guys seeing it taking longer to go through multiple offers, Tina, in your market?
Oh yeah. I mean, to paperwork that we have to do. There's just a lot. There's a lot. So when and you guys know, I mean, 20 years ago, we weren't doing this. Our listing contract was 5 pages. Now it's like 45 pages. And it's like, it's gotten harder. So solo agents are going to continue to be not highly income producing. And I think the industry as a whole, this will shake it up a little bit to where now you have to become a more professional. You have to learn business and strategy or have different people helping you grow the business versus this solo agent, type of deal.
Agreed.
Money moves to difference, not similarity.
Yes.
That's right.
Yes.
Amen. Guys, fantastic. Tina, thank you for carving out the time, jumping in and really embracing kind of what the whole One Big Fire concept is all about. And, you know, we burn brighter when we all come together. And so thank you for coming in and pouring in. And fellas, as always, amazing, fantastic. And look forward to doing it again this time next week.
See you guys.
Yes.
Appreciate you.
Yeah,
See you guys. Bye.